Hi everyone, this is Debbie from Organic Oasis in Northern California, Zone 9B. So I'm in a hurry to use up my kale before it bolts. And I just went out and looked at it the other day. It's a gorgeous big kale plant, but it looks like the heat now that we're having is starting to make it begin to bolt or flower on the top. So that will make it bitter and it won't be as delicious as it is now. So I'm trying to find recipes where I can use this up, use the kale. And I found this ground turkey pasta recipe that calls for 5 cups of chopped kale. And I'm going to be doubling this recipe or making 2 batches of it because I'm helping my daughter out who's having her kitchen remodeled, and she's a family of 5. So I'm helping them out. So I'm going to double this recipe. So I need 10 cups of kale. So I may be stripping my entire kale plant today. But anyway, as well as this recipe needs some kind of spaghetti sauce or tomato sauce. And I'm also trying to use up my canned spaghetti and tomato sauces before Tim brings in pounds of tomatoes from our upcoming garden. So I think this recipe will be perfect. It sounds delicious and probably a recipe that children would like because it's pasta. And of course, children love pasta. So stick with me and let's make this delicious recipe. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get our pasta cooking. The recipe calls for 3 cups of whole wheat penne or fusilli, uncooked, or 10 ounces. And I'm using this new pasta that I had called Strozza Preti. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. It's supposedly a hand-rolled pasta. And I just have it sitting in my cabinet. I haven't used it, so I'm going to go ahead and use this because this is what I have. And I'm going to measure out 20 ounces. Now, I'm going to talk about this recipe as a single recipe, but I will be doubling it because I'm making 2 of these, one for my daughter and one for us. So it calls for 10 ounces. So let's do 10 ounces. There's 10 ounces right here. We've got the water coming to a boil for the pasta, and I've got my 2 dishes, 9 by 13. I'm just going to put a little olive oil in here and spread it around so that it's non-stick. Remember, I'm making 2 of these, but the recipe I post will be just for 1. But if you're making this for a big crowd, you might want to make 2 like I'm doing. Okay, just kind of rub the olive oil all over. Okay. This recipe calls for 5 cups of kale, stemmed and then the leaves chopped, which is an awesome recipe if you're like me, you have a kale plant, it's getting hot, you want to use the kale before it bolts, the plant bolts. So I'm excited. I found this recipe. I hope it comes out delicious. But let's go out and harvest some kale. Here's the kale plant I've been talking about here. And as you can see, it's starting to come up here into just this one stem where the leaves are just getting really tiny. And it's looking like it's going to flower. So I've been pulling and cutting from the bottom down here. If you can see that, the stalk at the bottom. So I need to keep cutting the bottom all the way up. And eventually, I think this plant is going to be a goner. So I'm going to cut all the bottom leaves. As you can see, there is another little smaller kale plant behind it. So I'm going to harvest this first, the front one first, and then eventually I'll pull the front one out and let the back one continue to grow. But like I said, when these fall plants, once it starts getting warm, the fall plants just do not do as good. And I could put a shade cloth on this and try to protect it from the heat. But we're getting up into the 80s. It's in the 70s. So here's what it's looking like. Now the one in the back is still looking pretty good. But I think what I will do is maybe take one more of the big ones. There we go. Okay, we've got a nice big bowl to harvest here. So as you can see, I harvested a nice big bowl of kale. Now, my kale plant is it is a fall plant, and the fall plants don't like the heat. I could extend the life of my kale plant by putting a shade cloth up on these really hot days. Today it's 70s, but it actually got up into the 80s. So that's when the fall plants start to kind of suffer. Since I'm planting my summer garden right now, I'm not sure. I probably won't do much to keep the kale plant going. I'll probably end up pulling it and then planting beans or something in its place. But as you can see, it's really healthy. It's great. Now, I did find a few aphids on this recently. Again, I think the stress of the heat will make the plant weaker, and then things can move in, bugs can come in and start to try to take over. I went ahead and sprayed it with the peppermint oil treatment. I got the recipe from Rusted Garden. I really like his recipes, his organic recipes. So I did spray it. And yesterday when I picked some kale to make smoothies, I only found maybe one dime-sized patch of aphids on the entire, like several leaves that I harvested. So treating it with the peppermint oil is a really good organic way to keep the aphids under control. Even if it doesn't get rid of them completely, it will help eliminate them. And then now I'm just going to go ahead and wash them with a spray. I'm going to really spray them off really good to get anything that's on here off. And then I will pick the kale and we'll chop it up. So I've got my water boiling here, and I'm going to go ahead and pour in my pasta. When you first pour your pasta in, you want to make sure that you stir it to avoid it from sticking. Now, the recipe says to cook it 4 minutes less than fully cooked, because you're going to be also baking this in the oven, so you don't want to overcook the pasta. So I didn't have instructions on how to cook this pasta, but most pastas cook 10 minutes. This isn't freshly made pasta, so I would say 10 minutes, and then I'm going to subtract 4. So I'm going to cook this. I'm going to check this at the 5-minute mark. I'm going to bring it back to boil, and then in 5 minutes I'll check it. And I do want the pasta al dente. I don't want to overcook the pasta. At the same time, we want to turn our oven on to 350 degrees to start to heat up. So the way I clean my kale is I just basically take my sprayer, I spray off the back of it, the front of it, and I leave a little bit of stream of water going, and I just start pulling. If I see anything, like I saw aphids on here, I would do a thorough washing, but like I said, I only found like one small patch yesterday, and the peppermint oil really does seem to take care of the aphids. So I'm not seeing anything on this that I have to worry about. And so this part I'll be composting. Into my salad spinner. The recipe calls for keeping 1 cup of pasta water. So what I did was I just strained my pasta into this. I have a strainer and then a bowl underneath. So I'm just going to drain the pasta, and then I'm just going to scoop up a cup of the pasta water. And now I can just dump out the rest of this. And now I'll just leave the pasta draining here until I need it. Here is the kale that I've already cleaned, and then I spun it dry in my salad spinner. I'm going to start chopping it, and I need, for this recipe, 5 cups of chopped kale. And this is 8 cups right up to the top. So I'm gonna go with 5, but I'm gonna, remember I'm doubling the recipe. So I'm gonna, you'll see more on here, but the recipe will be for a single 13 by 9 inch pan. And you'll need 5 cups for this recipe. Okay, so I'll just be filling this up and chopping away. Okay, so I've got my kale washed and I spun dry it. And now I'm going to just chop it up. I need 5 cups of kale for my pasta, except I'm going to be needing 10 because I'm doubling the recipe. But for you, if you're making just one, you just need 5. And if I have any left over, I'm gonna just put it in this plastic container, and I'm going to put a towel in to absorb moisture and just put the lock lid on and put it in my crisper drawer. That way I can use the kale later, because it looks like I overpicked, so I'm gonna have some extra kale. And I can use it, say, tomorrow in a smoothie, or if I decide to make a soup or something, I'll have kale to throw in it. So I think I'm gonna start putting some of it into this container. And I'm gonna try to grow kale through the summer. I'm gonna try to put it in a shady spot, a cooler spot in my yard. I just love having kale, you know, to be able to just go out and harvest it. It's just where I have it right now, it's gonna get 80, 90, 100 degrees. It's not gonna do well. It is a cool fall plant, so I'm gonna have to replant it somewhere else. But I'm gonna try to do that this summer just so I can have some fresh kale. And I like kale better than spinach. I do have some Malabar spinach and some other New Zealand spinach, which is supposed to be okay to grow in the summer, but I don't like spinach as much as I like kale. Just gonna. So we have our nice saute pan on heat that we're starting to heat up. I'm gonna put a little bit of olive oil in here. And now we need to chop our onion and garlic. And we'll be adding that to the pan. So we're gonna start chopping up the onion. The first thing I like to do is get off most of the dry skin. I cut both ends. I've never taken cooking classes. I could be doing all of this completely wrong, but I have been cooking for 60 years, close to 60 years. So hopefully I've learned by now how to cut an onion. What works for me may not work for you, and that's okay, as long as you get the job done. So all of that will go into my compost. I just like to slice my onion into thin slices. I probably need to sharpen my knife. These are Myobi. I have the Myobi knives. They're awesome knives, but sometimes I let them get dull. So basically what I'm going to do is chop my onion. And because I'm doubling the recipe, I'll be chopping 2. And no need to bore you. I doubt you want to watch me chop 2 onions. But I'm gonna go ahead and chop 2 onions and add them to the skillet with the olive oil. So we have our onion in the pan with a little olive oil. And now we want to add 4 large garlic cloves minced. So I'm going to go ahead and add 4. I just use a teaspoon. I use the Kirkland garlic. And I use like this much per clove, about a half a heaping teaspoon per clove. So I need 4 cloves, so I would put in 4 of these scoops. Okay, there's 4. Since I doubled the recipe, I need another 4. You can disregard this part if you're not doubling the recipe like me. Now we're gonna just keep this cooking for about 2 to 3 minutes. Gonna put my timer on here. So I do use a timer. I'm gonna put it on 3 minutes. At my age, you wanna use, I'm 66, gonna be 67 very soon. You wanna use a timer. I get easily distracted, so I don't wanna forget and overcook it. Just stir it occasionally. Starting to smell so good. I have some onions that I didn't cut very, oh, I guess it is cut. It just is in a big piece, but now that it's cooking, it's starting to break apart. There we go. Okay. Okay, so now we're gonna add all the spices. So I dehydrate a lot of my spices and I keep them in these little jars. Here's oregano, 1 tablespoon of dried oregano. 1 teaspoon of dehydrated, I'm gonna turn this heat down a little bit, of dehydrated basil. Pepper flakes, optional. They say a pinch of pepper flakes. This is my own mixture. I grow and dehydrate. I'm putting in a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. Sea salt, 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt. It calls for rosemary, 1 teaspoon of rosemary, and I'm ashamed to say I do not have rosemary. I normally have a plant outside and I dehydrate it, but I pulled my plant because it got a disease that I could not fix organically. So I pulled it and I have not yet grown a new rosemary plant. So I have no rosemary and I don't have any dried rosemary or no store-bought rosemary. Let's put in a little pepper to taste. And we're just gonna stir this up. And next we will add the meat. Now the meat, the protein, it calls for turkey. And I'm gonna go ahead and put in the organic ground turkey that I buy from Costco. But my daughter is a meat eater. She's a big CrossFitter and she likes to get her protein. And so I had 1 pound of organic ground beef. I'm going to actually mix these since I'm making 2 of these, 1 for her and 1 for us. Normally I would use the ground turkey. But because I had 1 of these and because she's got a big growing family, I'm going to go ahead and mix the 2 of these. And so that's what I'm gonna do. I've got the turkey meat and the ground beef in here. I'm using both of these. So if you were making this for just your family and you're making 1 tray, you could choose ground beef, ground chicken, ground turkey. I guess you could use ground pork. The recipe calls for turkey. And that's what I was going to use, 100%. When I decided to make it for my daughter, I had the 1 pound of ground beef in there, so I just decided to throw it in. I didn't have any more organic turkey. I only had regular ground turkey, but not organic because they were out of it when I was at Costco. So anyway, I just decided to try it this way. We'll see how it comes out. I'm not anti-ground beef. We try not to eat beef, but in this particular case, I didn't want to make 2 completely different recipes, so I'm just mixing it up. And I'm sure it'll be okay, you know. I don't think the flavor will be affected too much. This recipe has a lot going on in it, a lot of flavors. Pasta, it's going to have spaghetti sauces, and it's going to have cheese, and I think it's so much going on in the recipe that it's not going to, you're not going to notice the big difference with the mixture of the ground beef and the turkey. So we're gonna keep this cooking for about 7 minutes. The turkey and beef have been cooking with all these spices, and it's nice and brown now. I did drain the oil or the grease out of the bottom of this. I have a cover. I just used the lid, and I just went over and tilted the pan to get rid of any extra oils. Now we're going to go ahead and put in 28 ounces of tomato sauce, low sodium. Now I'm going to put in, so we're looking at 28 ounces, okay, of tomato sauce. So that would be not exactly a quart. That would be not exactly 2 pints. So you basically are going to have to pour your tomato sauce into a measuring cup to get the 28 ounces. I'm using my home canned. This is home canned spaghetti sauce, and I have some home canned, and actually this is my last jar of home canned spaghetti sauce, and then I have my seasoned tomato sauce that I'm going to be using today. So I am going to put in, so remember the recipe for one recipe is 28 ounces, but since I'm doubling this, I need to put in 7 cups, 56 ounces, which is 7 cups. So here goes. Here's 2 cups. And 2 cups, another 2 cups, 4 cups. Okay, I need to open another jar. So here's another jar of my seasoned tomato sauce. I'm opening that up. Okay, another 2 cups. This brings it to 6 cups. And I just need 1 more cup. So here we go. So now we've got our 7 cups. So you know what? I have only this much, less, maybe half a cup of my open jar left. I'm just pouring it in because I don't want to waste it. Okay, so now we're just going to stir this up. We've got our 7 cups. And like I said, you'll be using 28 ounces. I think actually a lot of the cans now come in 28 ounces, so that would be perfect if you're using store-bought. Okay, so we got that. And now it calls to put in 1 tablespoon of honey or maple syrup, which sounds delicious. I'm using honey. And again, it calls for 1 tablespoon. I got my tablespoon here. So I'm putting in a tablespoon for 1 serving. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in 1 more tablespoon for my daughter. Now, I went back and rechecked and made sure I was doubling everything. And I actually forgot to put in the second, the doubling the seasoning. So I had to go back. I wasn't running the camera, but I went back and doubled my seasonings. It's sometimes confusing to double recipes. Okay, so again, for you, you would be just doing 1 tablespoon. And now 1 tablespoon of balsamic vinegar. And here we go. 2 tablespoons because, again, I'm doubling my recipe. Sorry if this is confusing everybody. Also, just to let you know, I'm using the organic honey by Kirkland. I like to use the local honey, but it's difficult to get access to it. Also, my balsamic vinegar is, let me show you this. It's just again, it's Kirkland. I use a lot of Kirkland stuff. So we got that. And I just want to get the balsamic vinegar out of here. Okay, and now it calls for 2 cups of pasta water. So I have the pasta sauce, the spaghetti sauce, and the tomato sauce added. And I put in the honey and the balsamic vinegar. And it does say to add the 1 cup of the pasta water. So remember, I took out a cup of the pasta water And because I'm doubling this recipe, it would be 2 cups. But you know, this recipe, this pan is really full. And I did add an extra half cup of my spaghetti sauce. And this is looking rather liquidy to me. So I'm not going to add that pasta water right now. I don't like a liquidy sauce. I actually like a thicker sauce. So I'm not going to add any water right now. Now, pasta water would help thicken it because it's got the starch from the pasta, but I can't imagine getting this more liquidy. We're going to put the kale in, and then remember the pasta, it's already almost completely cooked. So it's not going to absorb that much of the liquid. And if it does, I would like it because, like I said, I like a thicker sauce. So I'm not adding the water. But we're going to go ahead and bring this to a boil now, and we're going to boil for about 2 minutes, and then we're going to go ahead and add the kale into it. Okay, so this has been boiling for a few minutes, and now I'm going to add the kale. And my pan is pretty full. If you're only making one pan of this pasta, you don't have to worry. Since I'm making 2, I may have to actually transfer it into a bigger pot. I'm going to try not to have to do that though, but I don't want it to spill over. Also, I want to apologize if the sound of my voice is not good. At one point, my phone needed charging, so I took it and charged it, and then I forgot to put my microphone back on. So I'm not sure if the sound is not going to be good on part of this video, and I apologize for that. I know it's hard if you're having trouble hearing someone. It's not a good thing, so I apologize. We have all kinds of weird sounds going on here. I don't know if you can hear my dog. We have a 13-and-a-half-year-old dog that's having some issues, and I hear her kind of choking or coughing. She has allergies, and we give her medicine, but she knows how to pick it out. So I found her medicine in her food bowl. She didn't actually eat it, so now she's coughing. So also, if you're making this and you're starting to, some of the water's dehydrating and you're thinking, wow, this is getting too thick, remember, now I have the pasta water sitting over there. So I could add the pasta water if I feel like this is getting too thick. I ended up transferring all of the turkey and hamburger sauce into my bigger caraway pan or pot, because I was worried once I added the pasta that it would just spill over. I didn't want to do that. So I went ahead and put it in my bigger pot. As you can see, it's still really full. So maybe, and I don't have a bigger pot. I don't have anything actually bigger. The only thing bigger I have is like my canning pot, which I use to can. And that's out in the garage. But I will, hopefully this will work. Next time, I really did not want to have to cook one entire recipe and then re-cook, another one. So I tried to double it, but I needed a very jumbo size pan because I got to add all this pasta. And I am actually thinking I'm going to add the 1 cup of pasta water here. Now, because I doubled it, I needed 2 cups, but I did not save any of the pasta water. So I would probably, if I need more, I'll just add another cup of just purified water. Okay, I still got a lot of pasta to add. So I'm hoping I can get this all in here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and add the last cup of water. I'm wondering if when it cooks in the oven for 20 minutes, if the pasta does absorb a lot of the liquid, it might just get too dry. So we don't want that to happen. So we'll just add the water and see, and we'll do an experiment and see what happens. Okay. So the last step is now we take all of this pasta and we go ahead and we layer it, and we do like a layer and then a cup of cheese and another layer and a cup of cheese. Okay. So bear with me as I go through this because like I said, I'm doing 2 of these. So I'm going to go ahead and try to do it as evenly as possible. And, this would be, being I'm making 2, but this would probably be a wonderful dish if you were having like a huge party or something. This could be a nice dish for having, like if you have a lot of company coming over. It's really not that difficult to make it, and the ingredients are easy to come by. Everybody loves pasta too. So I think what I'm going to do though is I'm thinking I love making lasagna. So what I'm going to do is just do it like a lasagna. I'm going to do layers, but if I end up with 3 layers, it'll just get a little bit more cheese. The recipe calls for just 2 layers, but I'm going to go ahead and just do as many layers that make sense as I'm building this pasta. This does kind of remind me of lasagna, actually. We have a family recipe that's been handed down, and my grandmother on my father's side was Italian, and everybody wants that recipe, but I only give it to a few people. It's one of these cherished recipes. Okay, so it looks like it's gonna, yeah, it'll make definitely more than 2 layers, at least 3, I think. Well, my grandchildren are gonna love this. So I have 3 grandkids, a 17-year-old, an 11 or 10-year-old, and a 2-year-old, and they're gonna just absolutely love this. I think I'll add Parmesan to the top. It calls for the mozzarella, but I think Parmesan would be awesome. It also calls for, on the very top, you put some Italian parsley, chopped Italian parsley, which I'm actually growing some in my garden, but it's at a baby stage right now, so there's no way I could take any of it off. I'll just have to use some dehydrated parsley. Yep, this is definitely lasagna-like. I'm just going to scoop this all on and then kind of flatten it. And let me see. I'll just do this and pour some of this on here. Okay. Now I'm just going to flatten it out. The other option is if when it cooks, there's like a lot of liquid that doesn't absorb into the pasta, then you can always drain it. You know what I'm saying? So after it's cooked, because I can see that liquid again. So I'm just concerned about the amount of liquid in this. If it's just too much liquid, we need to let the pasta absorb as much as it needs. But if it's too much, we can just drain it off. Hopefully it won't drain all the flavor though. Okay, I'm still going to put a little bit of mozzarella on top, and then I'll put the Parmesan on top of that. I think it looks pretty with the mozzarella. Okay, here comes the Parmesan from Costco too. They have very good quality Parmesan cheese. Here it is. You definitely could alter this recipe. You could put in a lot more kale. I could have put in a lot more kale. You can change out the meat, change out the pasta shapes, change out the cheese, change out the sauce. Lots of different ways you can tweak this. Okay, so now we put foil on and we put it in the 350-degree oven for 20 minutes. So we want to definitely put foil on here. Now, unfortunately, the cheese will melt and stick to the foil, but there's no way around that. We're going to put the foil on here. That will keep the moisture in and the pasta will absorb more of the liquid. And let's put it in the 350-degree oven and I'll see you in 20 minutes. Well, it's out of the oven and it looks absolutely delicious. So I'm going to go ahead. As you can see, there's quite a bit of liquid here, but let's see. I'm going to scoop it out. 2 plates, just small. Tim and I had a late lunch, so I don't want to overdo it. Here's one, and here's the second one. I'm going to scoop down this way. There's lots of melted cheese. I think my grandkids are going to love this, and you know what? They're not even going to notice that there's kale in here. Okay. Here we go. Okay, taste test time. Let me try this. It's really good. This is delicious. Children would love this. Your family will love this. It'd go great with some crusty sourdough bread, maybe a salad, but since it has the kale in it and all of the fresh tomato sauce, you don't actually need an extra salad. It has a really mild flavor with not a lot of spices, so children definitely will love it. I know my grandkids will love it. It's healthy, it's delicious. So try making this. If you make it, let me know how you like it, if you change anything up. Also, you don't have to grow your own tomatoes and canned tomato sauce and grow your own kale and all of that to enjoy a dish like this. Go ahead and go purchase your things from the grocery store. Try to get organic if you can. If you can't, that's okay. The fact that this is going to be a great recipe and nutritious, better than eating out, better than going to like In-N-Out Burger or, you know, some place where you don't know what's actually in the food you're eating. You will have a nutritious meal if you make this. Again, you can tweak it and put in different meats or any way that you think your family would like it the best. I think this is a keeper. I'm going to keep this recipe. I'll probably tweak it every time I make it and change it up and see what, you know, if there's other ways to add spice and flavors and things like that. So it's a fun recipe to play around with. Thank you for following this channel. The main purpose of my channel and Tomato Tim and my channel is to be in a suburban neighborhood. We are in a city, in a suburban city, and we're growing our own organic vegetables, and we're trying to eat healthy by using our vegetables in our everyday cooking. And I'm trying to help you to get ideas of how to use your freshly grown produce, or if you buy it at the farmer's market or you buy it in the grocery store, things and ideas that you can use it, how you can use it. By no means am I preaching this is the only way to eat. I mean, I'm 66 years old. I have not eaten like this my entire life. I was a busy mom. Now I'm a busy grandma. And believe me, I do, you know, indulge in food that I know is not good for me. But again, we have so many things happening today as far as health risks and things that we're dealing with in our society today. And so I'm trying really hard to eat better. And I'm happy to know that my daughter is trying to feed her family better as well. And I hope that you try really hard to feed your family good, delicious, and nutritious meals as well. Thanks for following along.